On today's show, reacting to the Houston Rockets' new practice facility, Tilman Fertitta discusses the possibility of acquiring a WNBA or NHL franchise, and some injury updates for Steven Adams and a couple non-Rockets players in Kawhi Leonard and Mitchell Robinson, and why that matters. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Now, today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Quick special shout out right here at the top to my guy, Zach. Found out you really love the show. I appreciate you for tuning in, man. It means so much. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers of the program. All right, let's get into it. We got so many different topics to talk about on today's show. Want to share some initial thoughts and takeaways on the Houston Rockets' new practice facility, what it was like actually walking through the entirety of the facility, kind of going through the tour with Gretchen Shear, president of business operations for the Rockets, as well as the press conference immediately thereafter with owner Tilman Fertitta, general manager Rafael Stone, also Gretchen Shear, kind of some insights as to what they had to say about the facility, as well as a few other Rockets adjacent topics, I guess, with Tilman discussing the possibility of acquiring both a WNBA and NHL franchise, his thoughts on those, as well as some injury updates for Steven Adams and a couple non-Rockets players in Kawhi Leonard and Mitchell Robinson, and why that matters for the Houston Rockets. All right, so let's start with the practice facility, because my goodness, is it nice. Like, holy crap, it's nice, guys. Compared to the digs that the Rockets were playing in for 20 years, about 20 years, whenever they moved into TC, right? Look, I thought Rafael Stone's quote was very apt. It's you don't, to play basketball, all you need is a ball and a hoop, right? And you can have that all across America, all across the world, but you don't really realize what you're missing until you have it. And so for a lot of the members of this organization who all they've ever known is the practice facility at Toyota Center, right? And for a lot of the Rockets draft picks, right? Guys who have only ever played for this specific Rockets organization, they don't know what they've been missing out on from some of the other, top of the line, cutting edge technology that's been available to the 29 other organizations. I can't say 29. There's a couple other really bad practice facilities out there, but the Rockets were like bottom 3 for sure across the entire NBA landscape. Now they've got to be near one of the top in the NBA. But for like the veterans that the Rockets would sign, or like guys acquired via trade, free agents, whatever, like they would come in and be like, damn, y'all really live like this? And so, I mean, you compare it to like having done so many different media availabilities and having walked the halls of Toyota Center. Like, I get it, back when Toyota Center was originally acquired and that was going to become the Rockets' new arena. Yes, the idea of having everything in-house sounds good on the surface, and with the lack of available real estate in downtown Houston, makes sense. I'm just glad that the Rockets and that Tilman Fertitta and the organization took the step, this monumental step towards giving the Rockets a true competitive advantage here, because the gym at Toyota Center was awful. It was tiny. It was no space. Everything was spread out on multiple levels to where you might have coaches up on like level 3 or down on level 1 or whatever, and they'd have to take the elevators up and down, or you see them running up and down steps sometimes before the game to like share notes or whatever. So to have everything under one roof, to be able to move all of the basketball ops staff to the training facility, and to have it all like organized to where the courts are the center of attention, right? You've got these two beautiful courts in the very middle, and all the offices, all the important, adjacent rooms and everything are all within, 15 seconds of the main center court, right? To where Tilman Fertitta's office, literally right there. And if he's in there, or if, Patrick Fertitta's there, or, Rafael Stone wants to be in his office, or Ime's in his office, you can literally look out of these offices, and it's all glass. It's all very transparent. You can see what's taking place on the court. There's so much natural light in there. It's actually really nice. I mean, overall, I was truly blown away by the quality of this facility. Easily, though, aside from just how impressive the courts look, also in comparison to what they were working with, the Wall of Legends, or the Legends Wall, to get it accurate, was, I think, one of my favorite parts, right? To walk in, to be in the lobby, you see the 2 Larry O'Brien trophies kind of circulating or spinning on display. Well, not the real Larry O'Brien trophy, since Leslie Alexander took those with him, but to see the Larry O'Briens there, and to see the Wall of Legends with like the monitor with so many iconic moments in Rockets history just being played on a loop, right? The Mario Elie kiss of death, Hakeem Olajuwon, the block on Starks, Yao Ming, his injury against the Lakers, going back to the tunnel and then coming back out to finish off the game, the 22-game win streak, Tracy McGrady 13 and 35, just so many awesome iconic moments. And then to have all the retired jerseys on the back wall as well as Rudy Tomjanovich's "Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion" quote right there smack dab on that wall. It was really cool to see, and to have so many of those legends in attendance for the official unveiling of the practice facility, right? To see Hakeem Olajuwon and Elvin Hayes and Calvin Murphy and Rudy T all there to support the Rockets. Quick side note, Hakeem Olajuwon, who ever the humble, gentle giant that he is, right, was off on the side, like leaning up against a wall at the beginning of the press conference. And Tilman kind of like playfully bullied him into taking a seat. Like, Hakeem, you are important enough for a seat. You're not that important, but you're important enough for a seat. And Hakeem like looked like a school kid, like in trouble. He like walked across in front of the stage like, my bad. Okay, I'll go take a seat. It was just a fun little wholesome moment between the two. But it was really, really cool, right? And to just walk through the entire space, to see how much better this is going to be for the team moving forward, and truly what it ultimately provides, right? Because this is an area where there is no there's, when you look at the roster, right, when you look at payroll limitations or the limitations of the new CBA and the penalties for, the first and second apron and all this stuff, there's only so much money that you can ultimately spend on an NBA roster. But the areas where you can get a competitive advantage, where there is no cap on what you spend, it's right now, it's on coaching, and it's on amenities and facilities and things that can improve the lives of your team and of your players. And so far, I think the Rockets have absolutely crushed it with the fact that they have their own team plane to make life easier, to make travel easier for their ball club. They have a brand new cutting edge practice facility, and they shelled out big money for one of the best available coaches in the NBA in Ime Udoka, right? These are all areas where the Rockets could spend as much money or as little money as they want to. And time again now, the Fertittas have shown their willingness to spend to put this organization in a position to be competitive. So I do want to give a lot of credit to them for taking this step forward, to building this practice facility. And, selfishly, I like that that's where we're going to be able to hold Rockets practice and stuff now, instead of having to drive all the way into downtown Houston. A little bit more spacious from a media capacity. The media digs are a little bit nicer than the little foyer that we had with a metal detector or a scanner or whatever at Toyota Center. So I love all of it. It was honestly fantastic. I'm curious your favorite part of the new facility. The Rockets posted their kind of like drone fly through video of the facility. There are a bunch of high resolution images that I posted to social media and whatnot. So you can take a look at all those. If you want to see my actual walkthrough tour that I got with Gretchen Shear, president of business operations, the tour that she took all the media members on, that video is posted to the YouTube channel. So you can go check that out and kind of walk through the exact same tour that I got as well. So be sure to go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I am curious your favorite part, or the part that looks the coolest to you of the new practice facility. There's one thing that I want to mention about the practice facility. I want to talk about that, as well as the money quotes from Tilman Fertitta during the press conference talking about the Rockets' depth and the possibility of acquiring both a WNBA and an NHL franchise here in Houston, as well as we're going to get to our injury updates a little bit later on in the episode, why it matters for Steven Adams, obviously that one matters, but Kawhi Leonard and Mitchell Robinson, why those names matter for your Houston Rockets. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place just your first $5 bet. That's $5 to get $200, and you can wager on so many different things. You can take a look at things like their weekly specials, division winners, season leaders, season awards, or just go take a look at the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs are at plus 500, the 49ers and the Buffalo Bills are at plus 750, and then you've got the Philadelphia Eagles at plus 1100, and the Ravens right there at plus 1300, alongside the Detroit Lions. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. One more thing that I wanted to mention about the training facility in and of itself is the video system that they have in place with all the cameras around the gym. And essentially, after talking to a couple different people, around the tour of the facility, and even a couple guys in the video technologies department for the Rockets, essentially what this camera system does is it provides real-time tracking data and analysis on everything that these players are doing in the gym. It measures your maximum and minimum running speed, so you can tell if players are giving full effort on the court. It analyzes their shot data. It's like a 2K shot meter essentially. And it analyzes things like arc, release point, timing, distance, all sorts of stuff that gets, crunched up by, a couple, computers or whatever, and then spat back out for the coaching staff to be able to analyze and discuss and help break down and talk about with their players. So I think that's you compare that to the old gym, which was, again, it was like hooping down at the Y or something. It's going to be a massive improvement for this Rockets team. Cannot wait to see how this improves and helps the development of so many of the young players on this roster in particular. But let's get to some of what Tilman Fertitta had to say during his press conference with the media immediately after the tour of the new facility. First off, he did mention very bluntly that he said there's no team deeper in the NBA than us. And while I agree that the Rockets are one of the deepest teams in the NBA, I think a couple teams like maybe the Boston Celtics or the OKC Thunder might take an exception to that commentary. First off, I love the confidence from Tilman, honestly. It's impressive. Because when you do look at the Rockets roster, the third string guys on the Rockets roster could all legitimately be actual impact rotation pieces for other organizations, right? The Rockets third string currently, because they've only got 14 guys on the roster, so the last, 4 guys, currently Aaron Holiday, Jae'Sean Tate, Uncle Jeff Green, and Jock Landale. All 4 of those guys could conceivably go play for other organizations or a few different other organizations in the league and likely be part of an 8, 9, or 10-man rotation of actual contributing players. The Rockets do have a lot of depth. The issue here is they don't necessarily have the top-end talent that some of those other teams do, right? The Thunder have SGA. The Celtics clearly they've got Jason Tatum. They've got Jalen Brown, Porzingis. A couple of the other teams not only have the top-end depth, they might not be full-blown 14 deep like the Rockets are, but when you consider they've got the top-end depth and then also they're 10, 11, or 12 guys deep, then you're all right. I do think Rockets arguably are probably top 5 in the NBA in depth, though, which is a really great place to be. And hopefully what we see this season is Alperen Sengun take another step forward, Jalen Green take a step forward, Jabari, Tari, Amin, Cam. If these young guys can start to really move forward and become star level players, then by the end of the season, maybe we are talking about the Rockets as far as having that top end talent to also go along with being one of the deepest teams in the NBA. So just wanted to nitpick a little bit with that quote, because that quote's doing the rounds amongst NBA Twitter and everybody's having a field day with it. The other two, I think, more interesting discussion points from Tilman Fertitta, Rockets adjacent, so not specifically Rockets news, but he did discuss the possibility of acquiring an NHL and WNBA franchise. So let's go with the NHL one first. Tilman was very careful about what he wanted to say with the NHL one, and he said, the NHL would be great for Houston. They are looking to expand. We're hoping that no team right now meets the price that they want for an expansion team, and we're hoping that we somehow can get the team by being one of the best cities in America and also paying the right price for an NHL team. So it seems like Tilman doesn't want to overpay for an NHL team, which is great because you don't want to over leverage yourself, especially this was my concern the other day when there were the reports out there about Tilman's interest in acquiring an NHL or WNBA franchise. Is I don't want to see the Rockets stretched too thin. I don't want to see the Rockets suffer from the addition of one or both of these other franchises if it's going to spread Tilman and the Fertittas a little bit too thin. So I like that. I respect that answer from Tilman, and we'll ultimately see what the NHL decides. Now, the WNBA answer I thought was a little bit more interesting. Tilman said there's 8 cities vying for probably one more franchise that they're going to award in the next 2 or 3 years. I felt like it's time to step up, and the city of Houston deserves a WNBA team for all the young female athletes that live in the city. Are we going to try to get it? Yes. Do I think that we're in the top 50% just because of the strength of our NBA team and our leadership here? But it's not an automatic. Do we want it? Yes. We're going to put together a great bid. Sometimes you do things for the community, even if you financially cannot be as successful as you'd like. Let's just get the franchise. We will get leverages because of the Toyota Center and leadership. We just need to get it, okay? And then we'll find a way to make money out of it. So for this one, Tilman seemed a lot more gung-ho about wanting to get a WNBA franchise or conceivably bring the Comets back to Houston, essentially. And first of all, I loved his answer about just wanting to, have a WNBA franchise in the city for all the young female athletes and fans in the city. I thought that was really cool to hear him say. But the other part of this is he talked about the financial aspect of it, which I thought was fair in the sense that he was like, it doesn't matter if it's making money up front. We just want the team. We'll figure out the financials later. But in having a couple different conversations after the press conference, I think it's one of those things where when you're a city that has the infrastructure already in place, like the Toyota Center, like the new practice facility that they just built, like the team plane that they already own, when you have all this infrastructure in place, you don't have to then build it from the ground up. So there's not going to be all this overhead at the beginning of acquiring the WNBA team. And comparatively, payrolls and salaries and upkeep costs for a WNBA ball club is a lot cheaper than an NBA team. And WNBA teams make money now. Like the WNBA popularity is skyrocketing. And I think that, this was maybe more so an off the cuff answer, but I think that maybe Rockets brass, Tilman might be surprised to see like, okay, if we did get a WNBA franchise, I feel like they'd start making money back on it pretty quickly. And again, all those amenities that I just mentioned, right? The team plane, the practice facility, the Toyota Center, all these things, the Rockets' current leadership, right? The direction that the franchise is currently heading with their NBA counterpart. All of these are fantastic bargaining chips or talking points to discuss when they ultimately submit their bid to the WNBA, which there was a point where they discussed that apparently the WNBA has hired a third-party kind of firm outside of their own, organization to handle the bid process. And so things are a little bit different than they used to be. So we'll see ultimately what happens there. Look, selfishly, I would love to have the Comets back in Houston. Never got the chance to go to any WNBA team or WNBA games earlier in my life when I was a kid, and especially given the popularity of the WNBA and kind of where the sport is heading, I think it would be an absolute slam dunk to bring them back to Houston, one of the biggest cities, one of the best cities in the country. Right? There's a lot of different angles that the Rockets are working with here that I think makes them a logical choice to expand, especially when you consider it's one of the greatest franchises in WNBA history, right? The franchise that won the WNBA's first ever championship, right? Like that's important. And I think bringing back that that legacy and reviving that team, that culture would be fantastic for not just Houston, but also for the WNBA at large. So I am selfishly discussing all these points, but I also think it would make a lot of sense for the W. So coming up, want to get to our final segment where we talk about the injury update for Steven Adams, as well as a couple non-Houston Rockets and why that should matter to Rockets fans. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. But look, that's not the only great thing about Game Time. They have so many different features available. They've got their ticket coverage, so you're covered with the most flexible ticket coverage in the industry, their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you get to your venue. But this is my personal favorite. Their all-in pricing feature, which you can toggle on inside the Game Time app, shows you your price all the way throughout the process. Because I don't know about you, but I hate it when I'm buying tickets to a game or a concert and I get to the very end, and then suddenly they hit me with like the digital handling fee and the service charges and all this stuff, and you end up paying more in fees than you do for your actual tickets. It's the worst. Doesn't happen with Game Time. You toggle on the all-in pricing. They're fully transparent. They show you exactly how much you're going to be paying from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. You know, I wonder if I kind of buried the lead on this episode. Obviously, like the practice facility and everything is like super relevant and all that, but sometimes I wonder, like when I structure these episodes, if I should like put this stuff at the front and then do the practice. Whatever. We're here and we're going to talk about it. There was an update via Jonathan Fagan from the Houston Chronicle about Steven Adams, who apparently has been fully cleared for 5-on-5 play and was actually a standout performer in some of the Houston Rockets practices as recently as last week. So this is the newest, most recent update that we have on Steven Adams. It seems like he is healthy. He is an active participant in 5-on-5 play, and that is a huge benefit for the Houston Rockets because we weren't sure where he was going to be at coming off knee surgery and kind of rehabbing and getting back to a place where he can be the old Steven Adams. And so if he's healthy and if he's ready and if he's not on some kind of a minutes restriction to start the season or not playing like back-to-backs or something like that early in the year, if the Rockets just get full unfiltered access to their newly acquired big man, I can't say newly acquired, whatever, he's been here for a minute. If they get full access to Steven Adams from the jump, from the beginning of the season, that is a huge benefit, right? Rather than having to like, you know, cycle guys in and out, or maybe like one game is Jock Landale, the next game it's Steven Adams, or okay, he can only play, you know, 12 minutes a night, 15 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night, whatever. So that's a massive piece of news and very exciting for this team moving forward, because it seems now everybody's healthy, because Tari Eason's healthy as well, and Tari's been playing 5-on-5 and he's been, you know, doing all sorts of stuff, so Tari's fine too. Those were the two big question marks for the Rockets kind of coming in, right? Is how were Steven Adams and Tari Eason going to rehab their respective injuries and whether or not they were going to be ready to go for the start of the season. All signs point to the fact that both of those guys are ready to go for the start of the year, and both of those guys are going to be such major additions to this team. So there's that, the Steven Adams update. Now, the two other names here that are non-Rockets names and why it matters for the Rockets. Let's start with first Kawhi Leonard with the LA Clippers. Lawrence Frank was doing Clippers Media Day and basically shared that Kawhi Leonard is essentially, he went through his off-season surgery and he's at a place where the Clippers are kind of cautiously moving forward, I guess, with him. I want to get the exact verbiage on this right. Where's the sham tweet? Here we go. Clipper star Kawhi Leonard underwent a procedure on his knee in the off-season. Sources tell me and Law Murray and you, the Athletic Clippers reporter, I guess. The franchise said today Leonard will be limited to strengthening his knee to start Clippers training camp, but team officials are optimistic about his progress. So, first off, I want to clarify. We do not revel in the injuries of other players. Yes, this sucks for Kawhi, and I don't wish injury upon anybody in the association. But the fact of the matter is, this is very, very, very good for the Houston Rockets. And this is very good for a couple different reasons for the Rockets. So first of which is the fact that the Clippers are one of the teams that conceivably would be vying for a playoff spot in the Western Conference. And in order for the Rockets to get into the playoffs this year, they needed 1 to 2 teams to fall out of the playoffs from this past season. The Clippers, I was already, with the losing Paul George and getting another year older and all this, I was already eyeing them as one of the teams that was destined to take a significant step back this season. But if they miss Kawhi for even a small chunk of the season, yes, they've still got James Harden. Yes, they still have a really strong supporting cast. Yes, they still have Ty Lue as their head coach, but that is not a Clippers team that is going to be so far and away better than the Rockets. In fact, I would make an argument that the Rockets, as presently constructed, are a better team than the Clippers minus Kawhi Leonard. They might even be a better team than the Clippers with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, if I do say so myself. But what it means is it's one less team that the Rockets are likely going to be competing with, especially if they drop a bunch of games early in the season because they're missing Kawhi. Honestly, though, with Kawhi, like, you know, sitting out Team USA this offseason for the Olympic play, and then, you know, now the concerns over his knee, it's same old with Kawhi. It's unfortunate for his health, because a healthy Kawhi Leonard is an incredible basketball player. But it's less competition for the Rockets, and that's a fantastic piece of news. Also, as a quick reminder, and why it's also relevant, if the Clippers finish with a worse record than the Rockets this season, Houston will likely get to keep its 2025 first-round pick, because Houston can also, and because of the way that the Rockets, the Clippers, and OKC all have their swaps kind of set up, the Rockets would likely be able to keep their pick if the Clippers are worse than the Rockets, because then it would incentivize OKC to swap with the Clippers instead of Houston. So keep that in mind. That's another reason to root for the Clippers to be bad this season, so the Rockets do get to keep their pick instead of it being swapped with OKC, who is likely to be one of the best teams in the NBA again, right? So the OKC pick, if they did swap with Houston, would likely be one of the worst picks in the draft this upcoming draft. God, I hate when I do that. All right, so that's the Kawhi Leonard situation. And again, potentially one less team in the way for the Houston Rockets to achieve a playoff berth. Now, the last name here, Mitchell Robinson for the New York Knicks. Mitchell Robinson is not, progressing the way that they would have liked. And God, I had it here pulled up and I lost the direct information. In fact, let me see if I can find it really quick, because I want to actually be able to reference this in its entirety. Let's see. Mitchell Robinson. Are we not going to get any news? There we go. Yeah. All right. Mitchell Robinson is going to be missing the start of the season. Yeah, they're expecting a return for Mitchell Robinson in December or January, although the timing is going to be dictated by his rehab process. So not only did the Knicks lose Isaiah Hartenstein, they are not going to have Mitchell Robinson back for the start of the year, and they're not even going to have him back by the midway point of the season. It's all kind of up in the air right now. So the Knicks are a team desperately in need of a center. And the Rockets just so happen to have like a plethora of bigs on their roster. So I want to highlight here very quickly that there have been a handful of Rockets fans who have been in the comments of the YouTube show saying, "Stop talking about trading Steven Adams. Why do you keep bringing it up?" It's the reality of the situation, guys. Steven Adams is on a 1-year contract. If he doesn't want to be a backup to finish out the rest of his career, even if the Rockets are willing to pay him, if he wants to go be a starter somewhere, he might want to just walk away in free agency this upcoming offseason. So even if he's really awesome this year, the Rockets might have to look at trading him ahead of the trade deadline. However, for this hypothetical, I'm going to stay away from Steven Adams, because it sounds like the Knicks really need a big right now. They don't have the ability to wait and tread water until the trade deadline. That's really going to bite them in the ass if they do that. So the Rockets have Jock Landale, and Jock Landale is on an incredibly team-friendly deal where it's literally a team option every single year. And it's only, $8 million a year, super cheap contract. And he is at least starting caliber kind of replacement level player. And it would add some much needed center depth to the Knicks once Mitchell Robinson does, knock on wood, come back healthy. So without getting into the super nitty gritty of what the Knicks could trade for Jock Landale, I think that's a trade that the Rockets should absolutely look at exploring, even ahead of the season. Like, I would not be shocked if the Rockets and the Knicks have already had conversations, or if they're already exploring conversations centered around a Jock Landale trade. Now, you start to look at the Knicks roster. Let's double check really quick. Knicks roster here, and I don't know, just looking up and down their roster, like who the Rockets would actually want as far as maybe a player coming back for Jock Landale. There's not really a single guy on the roster that I think the Knicks would be willing to let go of for Jock Landale, and you'd have to start looking at, I don't know, a salary filler combination of players. There's a bunch of names on this Knicks roster that you could combine in a couple different trades, aggregate some salary, and get to where Jock Landale is at. The problem is the Knicks have no draft capital either, is the issue. I actually don't know if they literally do not have anything that they can trade draft wise to be able to incentivize the Rockets to make a trade like that. So we'll see. But that's at least a team that you could look at conceivably. And another team is the New Orleans Pelicans, that are in desperate need of some big man help. And because the Rockets have 3 legitimate bigs on their roster, if Steven Adams, knock on wood, multiple times, doing that a lot this episode, if Steven Adams is fully healthy this season, then I don't see a world where the Rockets wouldn't move on from Jock Landale, assuming that Steven Adams potentially does want to stay in Houston long term. Again, I really do hope that Steven Adams can be the Rockets' backup veteran big man for years to come. He's going to be a really important part of this team this next season. He's going to be a great kind of mentor for Alperen Sengun. And one of the other things about Steven Adams that I thought is so important, and I saw this the other day when I was revisiting his one and only media availability with or since becoming a member of the Houston Rockets, because it's not just as a bit of kind of inside information here, right? It's not mandatory for players who are injured to conduct media availability. When a player is hurt, they do not have to talk to the media ever. So he was willing to talk to the media in Houston, which is really cool on his behalf. But one of the things he mentioned when asked about being a veteran and, what he can, teach some of the young guys on the roster, he said, well, it's a two-way street, right? These guys might teach me something, right? And he was like, I can't just come in here, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, I can't just come in here and start, barking orders or throwing my weight around, whatever. I have to come in here and show that I'm, part of the team and show that I know what I'm talking about and what I'm doing before trying to teach these young guys. And they might teach me something as well, because we all see the game differently. We all play the game differently. And that kind of mentality from Steven Adams is, I think, going to go such a long way with some of these young guys on the roster. It's cool that the Rockets have now a vibes guy and a playable piece in Steven Adams, because Boban was great for the vibes, but Boban was only very situationally playable as as a part of the Rockets roster. So now Steven Adams checks both of those boxes as like veteran leadership as well as impact player on the court and total vibes guy. So very excited for the Steven Adams experience this upcoming season. But if you were general manager Rafael Stone and the Knicks were blowing up your phone about one of Jock Landale or Steven Adams, what would you want back in a trade? What would that trade look like in your eyes, or potentially the New Orleans Pelicans if you really want to explore that? We'll probably tackle a trade-centric episode down the line. But with that, that's going to do it for today's episode. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.